Magnify. Mr. Worf, dispatch a subspace message to Admiral Hansen.
Close your eyes and let the distinctive hiss of the automatic doors transport you back to the bridge of the Enterprise-D. We are all too familiar with Captain Picard and his cup of Earl Grey, or the charmingly quirky Data. Do you remember those voyages to the edge of the galaxy where the crew faced off against the omnipotent Q? But stay alert, because behind those gleaming consoles lie some shocking truths. Would you believe that our venerable captain once lived in such fear of being fired that he didn't unpack his suitcase for 2 years? Or that those majestic Starfleet uniforms were actually props that sent the male cast members to the Doctor? And here's one to truly shatter the illusion the beautiful counsellor, Deanna Troi, had to endure some highly sensitive physical demands just to maintain a certain look on screen. Now let's set aside the grand philosophies for a moment. Step into the decontamination chamber with me as we reopen the files on the 20 weirdest secrets of Star Trek: The Next Generation. 20. Deanna Troi and the sensitive beauty standards. You surely remember Deanna Troi, the beautiful counsellor with deep, soulful eyes, standing by Captain Picard to sense the pain or unmask the lies of alien races. However, to embody this role, Marina Sirtis endured immense pressure regarding her appearance. While Picard was defined by his command prowess, Troi's value in the eyes of the producers seemed confined to her sex appeal. Sirtis later revealed she was forced into diets so strict she lost 5 kilograms in a flash. Whenever the scale ticked up even slightly harsh, reminders would echo from the wings, trapping her in a cycle of body insecurity for years. In Season 1, remember those ultra-short dresses Marina loathed them? She felt more like a glorified ornament than a senior officer. It wasn't until Season 6 when a director finally put her in a standard uniform that Troi was respected for her intellect rather than just her silhouette. 19. The leading men's spandex agony. During the first 2 seasons, the crew looked sharp in those sleek, form-fitting one-piece jumpsuits. We all thought it was the pinnacle of future fashion. But behind that perfect look lay a harsh reality. To achieve a surreal silhouette, the production team forced the actors into ultra-stretch spandex suits that were several sizes too small. This led to a rather cringe-worthy situation. The suits were so tight they left absolutely nothing to the imagination. I'll leave that to your mental imagery. To fix the visual clutter, the wardrobe department mandated the use of incredibly restrictive dance belts. Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes endured persistent physical toll. They weren't just tormented by back pain from the spandex pulling their shoulders down, but suffered actual skeletal strain. It wasn't until doctors warned of permanent spinal deformity that the studio finally buckled, switching to more breathable 2-piece wool uniforms in Season 3. 18. The forgotten promise to the LGBTQ+ community. While Star Trek always used equality as its North Star, the backstage of TNG harboured a contradictory shadow regarding a promise made by Great Bird of the Galaxy, Gene Roddenberry. In 1987, Gene promised fans he would bring gay characters aboard the Enterprise. However, the reality was the polar opposite. Every time writers attempted to weave gender diversity into the scripts, high-level executives stayed their hands and spiked the ideas. The peak of this was the episode The Outcast, where Riker falls for a member of an androgynous race. Actor Jonathan Frakes fought for the counterpart role to be cast as a male actor to create a truly iconic boundary-pushing moment. Yet fearing a backlash, the studio took the safe route, hiring a female actress to avoid any unnecessary controversy. This indecision left the cast deeply disillusioned. They felt the inclusive future the show marketed was becoming little more than empty on-screen slogans. 17. The Secret of Data's Brain. Almost no Brent Spiner. Think back to those curious head tilts, the unblinking gold eyes, and the porcelain pale skin of Data, the only android officer on the Enterprise. He was the embodiment of pure logic, an entity yearning to understand human emotion. But few know that producers didn't initially have Brent Spiner in their sights. They dreamed of an actor with a massive, powerful physique to showcase robotic strength. Actor Kelvin Han Yi was even a top contender for the role. However, the production team hit a major ethical snag. They feared that casting a person of colour as an entity designed to serve humans would inadvertently evoke sensitive historical imagery of slavery. Consequently, they opted for a white actor and layered him in chalk-white makeup to strip away any specific ethnic identifiers. It was a calculated humanitarian move to avoid misunderstanding. Yet it also highlighted Hollywood's deep-seated anxiety when navigating the social issues of the era. 16. The Fired Doctor and the Caste Rebellion. Remember those tender moments between Captain Picard and Dr. Beverly Crusher in his ready room? By Season 2, audiences were stunned to see Dr. Pulaski at the medbay while Beverly had simply vanished. The truth behind this strange absence was a blatant, unjust firing. Gates McFadden was a woman of strong conviction. She refused to accept the lackluster development of female characters. She didn't hesitate to go toe-to-toe with showrunner Maurice Hurley to demand better representation for women. Gates's bluntness infuriated Hurley. The conflict peaked when Hurley gave Gene Roddenberry an ultimatum: "It's her or me." Ultimately, the studio chose to keep the producer and ousted our beloved Doctor. However, the suits underestimated the power of camaraderie. The cast viewed her firing as an insult to the core spirit of Star Trek. Patrick Stewart himself personally called Gates to tell her the crew needed her back. Armed with the captain's absolute backing and a tidal wave of fan protest, Gates made a proud return in Season 3. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a resounding victory for the actors over production tyranny. 15. Patrick Stewart's 2-year suitcase stint. I've always been struck by Captain Picard, the ramrod straight posture, the stern face and that piercing gaze fixed on the horizon. Whenever he commands, "Make it so," we see a leader of absolute confidence, a man who treats the Enterprise as his true home. Yet few know that Patrick Stewart stepped onto that set with extreme skepticism. To a British Shakespearean actor moving to America to wear a skin-tight suit and babble about time loops felt like a humiliating professional demotion. His agent even offered this comfort: "Don't worry, Patrick, this show is so dull it'll be axed by Christmas." Stewart took that prediction to heart. For the first 2 years of filming, he refused to buy a house or any furniture living out of a temporary rental. Even more astonishing, he never unpacked his suitcase. His personal belongings stayed tucked inside lid, ready to snap shut for a flight back to London the moment he got his walking papers. Little did he know this quick paycheck would turn into a glorious 7-season journey, transforming a stage actor into an immortal cultural icon. 14. Whoopi Goldberg's prank call. You surely remember Gwynnon, the mysterious woman behind the bar at 10 Forward. With her vibrant outfits and signature wide-brimmed hats, Gwynnon was the soul of the deepest conversations in deep space. The reality is that by the late 80s, Whoopi Goldberg was already a powerhouse star with an Oscar to her name. When she heard The Next Generation was casting, she called the production team herself. Their reaction: they hung up immediately, convinced it was just a prankster doing a celebrity impression. It took several persistent attempts before they realised in shock Whoopi actually craved a role in the series. To make it happen, she struck a deal that made her agents weep. She accepted a massive pay cut and was happy to take a modest supporting role. Whoopi's presence as Guinan gave the show a new level of artistic weight, turning a mere bartender into a timeless sage. 13. The creator's distaste for the bald captain. Captain Jean-Luc Picard is bald, yes, everyone knows that. But did you know that in the eyes of Star Trek's founding father, this look was initially considered an unacceptable disaster? From the start, Gene Roddenberry dreamed of a Captain Kirk 2.0, a muscular man radiating rugged charm. So when Patrick Stewart walked into the audition with, well, no hair, Gene shot the idea down instantly. However, the big suits at Paramount saw a different kind of magnetism in Stewart. To appease Gene, they made a laugh or cry request. Patrick Stewart had to wear a toupee for a re-audition. The situation was so urgent that his wife had to express ship his wig from London to Los Angeles just for this decisive performance. And here's the kicker. After seeing Stewart perform both ways, executive Robert Justman delivered a line for the history books. Hire the British guy, but for God's sake, throw that wig in the trash immediately. 12. Season 1 was a battlefield. Does it ever feel a bit odd Picard, Riker and Data always seem to find common ground on everything? There are no shouting matches, no petty jealousies and zero personal friction. To create this utopia, Gene Roddenberry enforced an ironclad rule known as the Roddenberry box. The main characters were never allowed to conflict with one another. In his worldview, 24th century humans had evolved past petty emotions like anger or selfishness. This left the writers pulling their hair out. In storytelling, no conflict means no drama. A show where everyone is too nice to each other is just a 45-minute office meeting in space. But the real nightmare was Leonard Maislish Gene's personal lawyer. He would sneak into offices to rewrite scripts himself. This blatant interference sparked a revolt. A record-breaking 24 writers quit within the first few seasons. 11. From robot girlfriend to evil twin. Imagine a sappy robots in love romance subplot where Data finds his perfect match. Sounds sweet, right? But without Brent Spiner's intervention, we would have missed out on one of the coolest villains in sci-fi history. Initially, writers wanted to gift Data an android girlfriend named Laura. The idea was simple. Data is lonely. Data finds Laura, and they learn to be human together. Brent Spiner hated it. He felt a mechanical muse was too predictable and would cheapen Data's unique quest for humanity. Instead, he wanted to create an entity that possessed the darkest human traits: envy, arrogance, and cruelty. Thus, Lore was born. This character didn't just showcase Spiner's masterful acting playing two polar opposite roles. It exploited humanity's deepest fear, betrayal from someone who looks exactly like us. 10. Worf didn't even have a chair to sit in. Do you remember Worf, the mighty Klingon warrior with those powerful forehead ridges and his signature growl, "I am not a merry man"? On the deck of the Enterprise, D. Worf was the tactical officer ready to protect the crew with his very life. But behind that majestic appearance lay a rather pitiful truth. Worf was originally a spare part. Initially, Gene Roddenberry wanted the next generation to be entirely fresh with no traces of old races like Vulcans or Klingons. However, as the filming date drew near, producers convinced Gene that a Klingon in a Federation uniform would be an incredibly powerful message, showing how the galaxy had found peace and changed after 80 years. Because he was added so late, Worf fell into a laugh or cry situation throughout Season 1. While Picard, Riker, or Data all had plush modern leather chairs on the bridge, Worf had no chair at all. If you pay close attention to the first few episodes, you'll see Worf just lingering, pacing back and forth behind the rows of seats, like a new intern who just arrived at the office. 9. Wesley Crusher and the bitter scam from the production office. If you watch the show, surely everyone remembers the boy genius Wesley Crusher, who frequently appeared in brightly coloured sweaters with extraordinary intelligence. However, while the character Wesley was having his path cleared for a radiant future, actor Wil Wheaton had to endure a nightmare called betrayal. At that time, Wil Wheaton received an invitation to play a role in a film project by legendary director Milos Forman. The filming schedule for this movie only overlapped by exactly 1 week with the Star Trek schedule. Therefore, Will asked producer Rick Berman for permission to be absent for that brief period. However, Rick Berman told a disastrous lie. He claimed Wesley played a vital role in the upcoming episodes, and the scripts were locked. If Will were missing, the entire crew would collapse. Out of absolute loyalty to the franchise, Wil Wheaton grit his teeth and turned down the life-changing opportunity. Bitterly, Wesley's role was subsequently cut down to the point where he almost disappeared completely. The feeling of being deceived caused Wil Wheaton to break down. He realised with bitterness that he was merely a pawn in the producer's game. Not long after, Will decided to pack his bags and leave, a choice he later admitted was one of the most necessary, liberating decisions of his life. 8. Future Tech, or a 5th grade chemistry experiment. Surely you remember the magical moment every time Captain Picard or Data stood on the transporter pad. A shimmering light covered them, their bodies dissolving into millions of tiny points of light before vanishing into space. But the problem was, at that time computers were still giant blocks of iron and processing complex graphics was unthinkable. Because of this, the production team used a glass jar filled with water, then sprinkled in a mixture of glitter, aluminum dust, and tiny beads capable of reflecting light. But how to make that pile of glitter dance vividly? They dropped Alka-Seltzer tablets, the effervescent stomach ache medicine, into the water jar. The bubbling reaction of the medicine created streams of bubbles that pushed the glitter into a chaotic swirl. When they shone an intense light through this glitter water jar, they captured shimmering footage. Afterward, the editors simply superimposed that image over the actors. 7. The reason why the villain Q exists. The first moment the ship Enterprise-D prepared to enter its great journey, suddenly a quirky man in 21st century judicial robes appeared. That was Q, the omnipotent entity with a snap of his fingers that could change reality. The reason for this character's birth was hilarious. The big bosses at Paramount demanded the premiere episode be exactly 120 minutes long. Faced with the risk of the episode falling short on runtime, Gene Roddenberry had to give birth to extra content to fill the gap. He wove the entire plot about the trial of humanity into the story of Farpoint Station. If Paramount had only requested a standard 60-minute episode that day, perhaps Q would have never existed, and the journey of the Enterprise would have lacked that arrogant snap of the fingers and those harsh life lessons. 6. The plan for the Borg, from insects to machine monsters. When the Borg first appeared, they sowed terror with their lack of emotion, cold calculation, and the ability to assimilate everything. But did you know that the original blueprint for the Borg had absolutely no metal on their bodies? Initially, the writers intended to turn the Borg into a giant insect race with a hive mind. However, looking at the tight budget of Season 2, the visual effects team cried out because the cost of making giant mechanical bugs was too expensive. To put out the fire, they decided to switch to the idea of half-human, half-machine entities to reuse old electronic components, wires, and existing tight-fitting costumes. That lack of funding accidentally created one of the greatest villains in cinematic history. Instead of a grotesque swarm of insects, we got assimilators who carry the faces of humans but have lost their souls. 5. When TNG was a landing pad for expired ideas. Do you remember those early episodes of The Next Generation when we were left in awe of new civilizations and human philosophies? Did you get the feeling that everything was being painstakingly brainstormed to create a perfect beginning for Picard's generation? The truth is that many of the script's character ideas, settings of TNG, were not the result of fresh brainstorming sessions in the 80s. They were originally prepared for a project called Star Trek Phase 2 in the late 70s, a project intended to revive Captain Kirk's crew, but which was axed right before 0 hour. Instead of tossing those stacks of scripts away, the producers decided to recycle them thoroughly. They simply pulled the old episodes out of the drawer, dusted them off, and used the find and replace command to change Kirk to Picard and Spock to Data. 4. A missed connection across space. When the captain met Peter Pan. Imagine a version of The Next Generation where Captain Picard's intellect had to go head-to-head with the mischievous wit of Robin Williams. The truth is, the character of Berlinghoff Rasmussen was tailor-made by the TNG writing team specifically for Robin Williams's quirky essence. Robin himself was a genuine Trekkie, and he was very excited about the role. However, right at the time of filming, Robin Williams got stuck in Steven Spielberg's feature film Hook, when the shooting schedule ran longer than expected. Additionally, the fact that his wife was pregnant forced him to give up his dream of standing on the deck to focus on his family. Robin's departure left a massive hole. The crew had to rush to find a replacement, and Matt Frewer stepped in. Despite facing extreme pressure, while playing a role originally intended for Robin Williams, Frewer transformed Rasmussen into an incredibly charismatic con artist. 3. When fans could also write scripts. Imagine you are a die-hard fan sipping coffee while scribbling amateur script lines about the journeys of Data or Picard. Does this sound impossible? In reality, with The Next Generation, the doors actually swung wide open for outsiders. Under executive producer Michael Piller, TNG officially implemented an open-door script policy. This meant that anyone from an electrician to a school teacher could submit their manuscript to the Star Trek offices without going through talent agencies. As a result, every year the production crew was attacked by a massive storm of up to 5,000 manuscripts. The assistant writing team had to read until their eyes crossed to find diamonds in the rough amidst a forest of stories riddled with errors. And the results were truly earth-shattering. Yesterday's Enterprise, an episode voted as one of the finest masterpieces of the entire series, was the product of a fan's idea. Without Michael Piller's generosity, we might never have witnessed one of the most dramatic moments in science fiction history. 2. The Enterprise engine sound was a bathroom exhaust fan. If you pay attention in every scene set in the hallways or quarters of the Enterprise, there is always a low, steady hum that creates the sensation of a powerful ship in operation. It is the iconic sound of peace in the universe. The film's sound engineer struggled to find an engine noise that was both futuristic and gentle enough not to drown out the dialogue. After many failed experiments with modern machinery, he accidentally recorded the sound of an exhaust fan in a restroom at the studio. After the pitch was adjusted and smoothed out using the technology of the time, that common fan noise became the nuclear engine of the most advanced ship in the galaxy. Every time Picard sleeps soundly, he is actually being lulled by the sound of a bathroom ceiling fan. The borrowed theme song, When Frugality Created a Legend. Close your eyes and recall the moment the theme song of The Next Generation rings out. The brass instruments blending with a powerful march melody make any Trekkie tingle with excitement ready for a trans-galactic expedition. The truth is, this music isn't original at all. It is a melting pot, moulded from various sources to save time. The introductory fanfare at the start of the film was actually lifted wholesale from the original 60s series, while the official march was taken from the feature film Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But the detail that will truly make you fall over is the sound of the Enterprise itself. Do you remember that powerful whoosh every time the ship glides past composer Alexander Courage directly? Created that swoosh sound right in front of the microphone along with other noises. Yet, the engine sound of the most modern ship in the galaxy was essentially just an impromptu beatbox performance. It turns out the journey to boldly go where no one has gone before wasn't just about exploring far-off galaxies, it was about surviving the harshest limits of the Hollywood machine. Picard, Data and Worf became legends, not because they were supermen, but because they were moulded from the sweat tears and the never-unpacked suitcases of actors who gave their all. Which secret shocked you the most? Can you ever look at Picard's uniform with a straight face again? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share this with your Trekkie friends so they can be just as mind-blown as you.